If you've ever driven through Angels Forest Highway late at night, you already know how isolated the road feels, especially once you get deeper into the mountains. No street lights, long stretches of road with nothing around, steep drop-offs, dense forest, and those random roadside pullouts where people sometimes camp overnight. Now, during the daytime, it's beautiful out there. Hiking trails, mountain views, quiet roads, but at night, the entire highway feels completely different. And honestly, places like that naturally create stories. Because once you're isolated long enough in the mountains, your brain starts noticing things, shapes between the trees, movement near the road, lights where there shouldn't be lights. Now, over the years, Angels National Forest has had its share of real disappearances, rescue operations, abandoned campsites, and strange local rumors. And tonight, the story that we're about to speak about is inspired by one of the creepiest types of encounters people claim to have out there. Because according to the local stories, sometimes you see something on Angels Forest Highway that shouldn't still be there. An old camper parked in the same turnout night after night. Now, before we start, quick disclaimer. This episode is part of an ongoing fictional horror anthology inspired by real California locations, local folklore, history stories, and urban legend. So turn down the lights, get comfortable, and let's get into it. According to the story, this happened sometime around 2019. A guy from Santa Clarita supposedly worked late shifts in Pasadena and regularly drove to the Angel Forest Highway to avoid traffic heading back home. And honestly, if you've driven through the road enough, you eventually stop paying attention to how creepy it actually is. The darkness becomes normal, the silence becomes normal. Even the abandoned looking pullouts and campsites start blending into the drive. Now, according to the story, there was one particular turnout he passed almost every night. Nothing special about it, just a dirt clearing near a tree line. Apparently, one night he noticed an old camper parking there, and not like a modern RV. This thing looked old, faded. No lights, no movement, almost looked abandoned. Now, naturally, he didn't think much of it. People camp up there all the time, but according to the story, the next night it was still there. Same position, same darkness, no lights, no movement. Now at this point, he started paying more attention to it during all of his drives. And apparently after almost a full week, the camper still hadn't moved. Same exact spot every single night. Now, according to the story, things started getting weird during a stormy night driving through the mountains. Apparently, visibility was terrible. Fog, almost cloudy, road almost empty, and as he passed the turnout again, his headlights swept across the camper window. And according to him, somebody was standing inside. Now, at first, he thought it was finally the owner, but apparently the figure wasn't moving, just standing behind the dirty glass watching the road. Personally, that already feels wrong, especially because according to the story, there still weren't any lights inside the camper. No lantern, no flashlight, nothing, just darkness, and a silhouette standing perfectly still. Now naturally he keeps driving because absolutely for no reason was he going to stop and investigate. He realized something else. There were no other tire tracks near the turnout, meaning if somebody was living there, they hadn't moved the camper for a long time. Now at this point he starts convincing himself he imagined the figure. Maybe a reflection, maybe a shadow, maybe exhausted. But according to the story, the next night proved otherwise. He's driving home again, around midnight. He notices something immediately. The camper door is open. Now remember, every previous night the camper had been completely sealed shut. No lights, no movement, nothing. But now the door is hanging open toward the road. And according to the story, he could feel something was wrong immediately. You know that feeling when your stomach drops because your brain even catches up? Apparently, it was that kind of feeling. Now naturally, he tries ignoring it and keeps driving, but a few minutes later, he hears knocking, very soft at first, from somewhere behind him inside the car. Now obviously that should be impossible, but according to the story, the knocking kept repeating. 3 slow knocks, 3 more times. Now at this point, he starts panicking, checking mirrors, looking in the backseat, nothing there. And according to him, the second he looked back to the road, he almost crashed because somebody was standing in the middle of the highway. Now, according to the story, he slammed on the brakes hard enough for the car to skid slightly on the road, and standing directly in front of the headlights was a woman, or at least something that looked like one. Long hair, bare feet, old, dirty clothes, completely motionless. Now, apparently, the weirdest part wasn't how she looked, it was her expression. According to him, she looked confused, like she didn't understand what a car was. Naturally, he's terrified at this point, and apparently, after several seconds, the woman slowly pointed back toward the turnaround where the camper was parked. Then, according to the story, she smiled. Now, this next detail is what made the story spread around online later, because according to him, her smile looked too wide. Not exaggerated like a monster movie, just slightly wrong, enough to make his brain immediately recognize something wasn't human. And apparently, the second he noticed the smile, all the knocking inside the car stopped completely. Now, according to the story, he immediately drives around the woman and speeds away. No hesitation, no stopping, nothing. And apparently, once he finally reaches Santa Clarita, he tells a few friends what happened. Naturally, nobody believes him. Until a few days later, another friend driving through Angels Forest Highway notices the same camper. Same turnaround, same exact position, still abandoned, still dark. Now, according to the story, this second friend actually stops, which honestly feels like the worst possible decision he could have made. But apparently, he parked nearby and walked towards the camper with his phone flashlight. And according to him, the inside looked completely empty. No blankets, no food, no signs of anybody living there, nothing. But apparently, while checking the inside, he noticed something scratched repeatedly into the walls. And what he saw, scratched, edged into the walls, said, "Don't open the door." Now, according to the story, the second he read the message, something from inside the bathroom area of the camper knocked. Same knock. Now, whether any of this actually happened, who knows? But Angels Forest Highway already feels unsettling enough at night without stories like this, especially once fog starts rolling through the mountains, because places like that feel isolated in a different way. Not empty, disconnected, like the normal world ends once you get deep enough into the forest. And honestly, any abandoned vehicle sitting in the same place for weeks is already creepy enough. But after hearing stories like this, I'm definitely not stopping to investigate one at midnight. This has been Limelight Studios, and remember, not everything abandoned is empty.